Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. Victor Neff learned to stay calm in the worst situations. 14 years dismantling IEDs across 3 continents taught him that panic killed faster than any explosive. At 42, he'd walked away from more near-death experiences than most people had nightmares. But standing in the Afghan heat with his hands inside a pressure plate bomb, sweat dripping down his temple, he never imagined the real explosion would come from 7,000 miles away. His phone vibrated. Protocol said ignore it. Victor's gut said answer. "Sir, this is Marcia Kemp." His mother's caretaker sounded breathless, terrified. 3 men just broke into the house. Oh God, they're holding your mother down. They're carving something into her back. Eleanor Neff's scream pierced through the speaker. 78 years old, recovering from a stroke, defenseless. Victor's hands remained steady on the bomb's wiring, but something cold and terrible settled in his chest. "Who are you?" Victor's voice carried the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Heavy breathing, then a new voice. "Young, cocky, stupid. Your mommy owes us $5,000, soldier boy. We know you're overseas playing hero. Well, here's the deal. You got 48 hours to wire the money, or we mail you pieces of her. Starting with fingers. Let me talk to my mother." "Sure thing." Rustling sounds. Then Eleanor's weak voice. "Victor, baby, I never borrowed money from anyone. I don't know these." A slap cut her off. The man laughed. "Tick-tock, military man. We'll be in touch." The line went dead. Victor looked at the bomb beneath his hands. Red wire, blue wire, timer ticking down from 3 minutes. He'd done this 1,000 times. His fingers moved automatically, muscle memory taking over while his mind raced. 90 seconds later, the device was safe. Victor stood, brushed dust from his fatigues, and walked toward the FOB communications tent. The other soldiers thought he looked calm. They didn't see the calculation behind his eyes. 3 months earlier, Victor had been stateside on leave, splitting time between his modest apartment in Virginia and his mother's house in Henderson, Nevada. Eleanor had raised him alone after his father died in a factory accident when Victor was 6. She'd worked double shifts as a nurse to put him through college, never complained, never asked for anything. The stroke hit her last year. Left side paralyzed, speech slurred. Victor hired Marcia full-time and visited every chance he got. Eleanor insisted she was fine, didn't want to burden him. That was her way, always protecting him, even now. He'd noticed a mail that day. Final notices from a payday loan company he'd never heard of. When he asked Eleanor, she seemed confused, said she never took out any loans. Victor figured identity theft, made a note to handle it after his deployment. Now, walking into the communications tent, he realized his mistake. This wasn't random. Someone had deliberately targeted his mother. The tech sergeant looked up. "Sir, I need a secure line to Langley. Priority black." "Sir, that's above my..." Victor's expression stopped in mid-sentence. The sergeant made the call. 10 minutes later, Victor sat in a soundproof booth, speaking to a voice he recognized from his darker days in the service. Before bomb disposal, Victor had been something else entirely. Something the military didn't advertise. "Viper, we haven't heard from you in 6 years." The voice belonged to Lawrence Nunez, one of 3 people who knew Victor's classified service record. "You're calling it a marker. Domestic situation. 3 hostiles at my mother's residence in Henderson. They're torturing her as we speak. Call local PD. By the time they get there, she's dead or maimed. I need immediate action." Silence. "Then what are you asking for?" "Redirect the nearest Reaper. Hellfire strike on residential coordinates I'm about to provide." "Victor, you know I can't. You owe me." "Fallujah, 2019. The asset you thought was compromised. I didn't have to burn my cover to extract your people." Victor's voice was granite. "This is me collecting." More silence. Victor could picture Lawrence weighing consequences, calculating political fallout, measuring debt against protocol. "If this goes sideways, I'll deny everything. You'll be burned." "Understood. Send coordinates. You have 1 shot. Make it count." Victor rattled off his mother's address, then added, "Thermal imaging should show 4 bodies. 3 hostiles, 1 elderly woman likely restrained in a bedroom. Strike when the three are together, away from her. Thermal shows. Jesus, Victor. One target is on top of your mother. There's still. Wait for separation. I don't care how long it takes. Asset is 47 minutes out. I'll have eyes on target in 30. Call me when it's done. And Lawrence? The bodies need to disappear. Make it look like they were never there. That's asking a lot. I'm not asking. The line clicked off. Victor sat in the silence of the booth, hands perfectly steady, heart rate calm. This was what he'd been trained for, making impossible decisions under pressure, accepting consequences others couldn't fathom. His phone rang 39 minutes later. He'd been sitting motionless, eyes closed, breathing controlled. 3 targets eliminated. Clean hit. Asset team is on site for cleanup. Your mother is en route to Desert Springs Hospital with your caretaker. Multiple lacerations on her back, shock, but stable. What did they carve? A pause. The word interest. Victor's jaw tightened. Send me photos of the deceased before cleanup. Already in your encrypted drop. Victor, there's going to be blowback. FBI will investigate 3 bodies vaporized in a residential neighborhood. Then they better be thorough. Victor ended the call. He accessed the encrypted photos on a secure tablet. 3 men, mid-20s to early 30s. The one who'd grabbed the phone had a distinctive tattoo, a scorpion wrapped around a $sign on his neck. Victor memorized every detail, then began cross-referencing through military intelligence databases. Darren Abbott, known associate of a loan sharking operation based in Las Vegas. 2 priors for assault, suspected in multiple extortions. The other 2 were harder to ID from the thermal damage, but facial recognition eventually tagged them. Rodney Fitzpatrick and Kent Christian. Same organization. Victor dug deeper. The operation fronted as Quick Cash Solutions, but intelligence reports connected it to a larger network run by someone named Caesar O'Neill. The man was careful. No arrests, no direct connections, insulated by layers of subordinates. But intelligence files showed something interesting. Caesar O'Neill wasn't just a loan shark. He laundered money for a trafficking operation, dealt in identity theft, and had political connections that kept him untouchable. Local law enforcement knew about him, but could never make charges stick. Victor made 3 phone calls. First to his commanding officer, requesting emergency leave. Approved within an hour. Second to a lawyer in Vegas who specialized in elder abuse cases. Third to Eric McPherson, his former teammate from the Special Operations days. Eric, I need everything you can find on Caesar O'Neill. Vegas-based, runs loan operations. You back stateside. We'll be in 18 hours. This is personal. Say no more. I'll have a full workup by the time you land. The flight from Kabul to Vegas took 26 hours with connections. Victor spent the time reading every scrap of intelligence on O'Neill's operation. The pieces formed a picture. O'Neill targeted vulnerable people with predatory loans, used forged documents to inflate debt, then sent muscle to collect. He'd been doing it for 15 years, built a small empire. But why Eleanor Neff? A retired nurse with no assets beyond her house and modest savings? The loan documents claimed she'd borrowed $20,000. Even with O'Neill's predatory interest rates, $5,000 was too small a demand for the level of violence deployed. This wasn't about money. It was personal. Victor landed in Vegas at 0600. He went straight to Desert Springs Hospital. His mother lay in a private room, bandaged and sedated. Marcia sat in the corner, eyes red from crying. Mr. Neff, I'm so sorry. They came through the back door. I tried to stop them. You did fine, Marcia. Take the rest of the week off. Full pay. He sat beside his mother's bed. Eleanor's breathing was steady, but the bandages on her back told the story of what she'd endured. The doctor had explained they'd carved deep, wanted it to scar. Wanted to send a message. Victor took her hand. I'm here, Mom. I'm going to fix this. Eleanor stirred, eyes fluttering open. Baby, you came home. Always. He squeezed her hand gently. Who gave you loan papers to sign? There was a nice young woman. Said it was for a senior program, some kind of relief fund. She had official papers, said I qualified for assistance. I signed. I thought I was getting help, not borrowing money. What did she look like? Pretty. Dark hair. Said her name was Sophia something. She was so kind, Victor. I don't understand. Victor's mind filed the information. Classic scam. Target vulnerable seniors. Get them to sign documents they don't understand. Claim they owe massive debt. But the violence that followed was unusual. Most operations just harass people, threaten lawsuits. They didn't torture. His phone buzzed. Eric, got your intel. This goes deeper than you think. Meet me. Victor kissed his mother's forehead. Rest. I'll be back soon. Eric waited at a diner off the strip, looking older than his 45 years. Special operations aged you fast. He slid a thick folder across the table. Your boy Caesar is connected. Not just street level. He's got ties to a trafficking network that moves people from Mexico through Vegas to other cities. The loan operation is a front and a recruitment tool. Get people in debt, offer them a way out by working for the organization. And the 3 men who attacked my mother? Low-level enforcers. Expendable. But here's the thing. Eric pulled out a photo. This is Caesar's younger brother, Danny O'Neill, killed 6 years ago in Fallujah. Guess who was on that operation? Victor stared at the photo. He remembered the mission. Asset extraction gone wrong. Civilian casualties in the crossfire. Danny O'Neill had been carrying a weapon, positioned with insurgents. The call had been righteous. Caesar knows it was me? He figured it out last year. Took him time to track you down, find your pressure points. Your mom was the target from the beginning. The loan scam was just the excuse. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't random crime. This was revenge, years in the making. Caesar had deliberately hurt an innocent woman to punish Victor for a war casualty half a world away. Victor closed the folder. Where does Caesar operate from? Victor, listen to me. You can't go after this guy. He's protected. You'll end up in prison or dead. Where does he operate? Eric sighed, recognizing the look in his friend's eyes. He'd seen it before, usually right before Victor did something impossible. He's got a legitimate business downtown. Art gallery called the Oasis. Uses it to meet clients, move money. But you need to know, FBI's already investigating the drone strike. Agent named Morris Williamson, sharp as they come. He's pulling surveillance footage, interviewing neighbors. He'll connect it to you eventually. How long do I have? Week, maybe 2 if you're lucky. Victor stood. Then I better work fast. What are you planning? Caesar wanted to send me a message. Time to return the favor. Over the next 72 hours, Victor became a ghost. He rented a nondescript sedan with cash, used fake IDs Eric provided, and began surveillance on the Oasis gallery. He documented everyone coming and going, photographed license plates, track patterns. Caesar O'Neill appeared on the second day. Mid-50s, expensive suit, moving with the confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. He arrived at noon, left at 6, always with 2 bodyguards. Victor also tracked the woman who'd scammed his mother. Eric's contacts identified her as Monique Baird, one of Caesar's recruiters. She specialized in targeting seniors, getting them to sign fraudulent loan documents. According to intelligence, she'd victimized at least 40 people in the past 3 years. On the 4th night, Victor made his first move. Monique left the Oasis alone, driving to a condo in Summerlin. Victor followed at a distance, parked 3 blocks away, and approached on foot. Her security was laughable. A basic alarm system he bypassed in 90 seconds. He waited in her living room, lights off, patient as death. Monique came home at 11 p.m., humming to herself, arms full of shopping bags. She flipped the light switch. Victor sat in her favorite chair. "Hello, Monique." She screamed, dropped her bags, scrambled for her purse. Victor moved faster, had her wrist pinned before she touched her pepper spray. "Sit down. We're going to talk about Eleanor Neff." Monique's eyes went wide with recognition, then calculation. "I don't know what you're." Victor pulled out his phone, showed her a photo of his mother's scarred back. "You got her to sign fraudulent loan documents. Then your boss sent 3 men to carve the word interest into her skin. She's 78 years old. That wasn't supposed to happen. Caesar said it would just be intimidation, scare tactics. I didn't know he'd." She stopped, realizing she'd admitted everything. "How many others like her?" "I want a lawyer." Victor leaned close. You're not under arrest, Monique. This isn't a legal conversation. This is me deciding whether you walk away from this or whether you disappear like Darren, Rodney, and Kent. Her face went pale. That was you? The explosion. How many others? She broke, words spilling out. 43 victims over 3 years. Caesar would target vulnerable seniors, get them to sign papers, claim they owed money they never borrowed. Most paid out of fear. Those who couldn't became examples: harassment, vandalism, occasionally violence. Why Eleanor specifically? Monique hesitated, then Caesar had her flagged special. Said to make sure she signed, make sure she understood the debt. He said she was personal business. Because of his brother. I don't know about that. I just follow orders. Victor stood. You're going to write a confession. Every victim, every scam, every detail. Then you're going to the FBI. Caesar will kill me. Caesar's going to have bigger problems. You testify against him. Witness protection keeps you breathing. You refuse. I'll make sure he thinks you already turned on him. Either way, your career as a scam artist is over. He left her with a laptop and instructions. 2 hours later, she'd written everything, included bank records she'd secretly kept as insurance. Victor uploaded it all to a secure server, then made an anonymous call to the FBI's Vegas field office. One piece moved. Time for the next. Morris Williamson studied the drone strike evidence with growing certainty. 3 men vaporized by a military-grade Hellfire missile in a residential Vegas neighborhood. 0 witnesses who'd talk. The homeowner, Eleanor Neff, claimed she'd been attacked by intruders, but by the time first responders arrived, the attackers were gone. Just scorch marks and trace evidence suggesting an aerial strike. Henderson PD wanted to call it an unsolved murder. Morris knew better. This had Black Ops blowback written all over it. He dug into Eleanor Neff's background. Her son, Victor Neff, former military. Decorated service record, but huge chunks were redacted. The kind of redactions that meant wet work, classified operations, the type of soldier who didn't officially exist. Victor was currently deployed in Afghanistan. Or was he? Morris made calls. Victor had requested emergency leave immediately after the attack on his mother. He'd landed in Vegas 4 days ago. Morris pulled airport surveillance. There, Victor Neff, traveling light, moving with purpose. Morris tracked him through rental car agencies, found a sedan under a false name that took 3 databases to connect. This soldier had called in a drone strike on American soil to protect his mother. Morris should have been furious, should have moved for immediate arrest. Instead, he felt something unexpected: understanding. If someone had carved up Morris's mother, he'd burn the world down too. But understanding didn't change the law. Morris had a job to do. He was building the case when the tip came in. Anonymous source with detailed evidence of a loan sharking operation. Morris opened the files, and his eyes went wide. 43 victims, bank records, recordings, paper trails. And at the center, Caesar O'Neill. Morris had heard the name before. Organized crime had suspected O'Neill for years, but could never make anything stick. This evidence was gift-wrapped, almost too perfect. Almost like someone was pointing Morris in a specific direction. He looked at the drone strike file, then at the O'Neill evidence. Victor Neff was hunting, and he was using the FBI as a weapon. Clever bastard, Morris muttered. Then he started drafting warrants. Victor watched from a rooftop across from the Oasis Gallery as FBI agents swarmed the building. Caesar O'Neill emerged in handcuffs, shouting about lawyers and false charges. Monique's testimony, plus the documentary evidence, was enough for arrest. Whether it would stick in court was another question. But Victor wasn't relying on the legal system. That night, while Caesar sat in a holding cell awaiting arraignment, Victor visited his business partner. Nelson Myers ran the trafficking side of the operation from a warehouse near the airport. He had 8 armed guards and surveillance cameras covering every approach. Victor went through the roof. He dropped in the warehouse office where Nelson was counting money. The big man looked up, hand moving toward a gun. Victor's first strike broke his wrist. The second put him on the floor. I'm going to ask questions. You're going to answer. Lie to me, and I'll let your trafficking victims decide your fate. Understand? Nelson nodded, cradling his shattered wrist. For the next hour, Victor extracted every detail of the organization. Names, locations, bank accounts, political connections. He recorded everything. Then he zip-tied Nelson and called ICE with an anonymous tip about trafficked persons at the warehouse. He was gone before they arrived, but he watched from a distance as agents freed 16 people who'd been held there. 2 pieces off the board. But Caesar was the king, and in 48 hours he'd make bail. Victor needed to move faster. He returned to his mother's hospital room. Eleanor was sitting up, doing physical therapy with her good arm. She smiled when she saw him. "You look tired, baby. When's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine, Mom." He sat beside her. "The men who hurt you won't bother you again. Neither will anyone else from that organization." "Victor, what did you do?" "What I had to." She studied his face with a mother's insight. "This isn't over, is it?" "Almost. I need to ask you something. The woman who got you to sign those papers, Monique, she mention anything else? Anyone else involved?" Eleanor thought for a moment. "There was a lawyer. Came with her the second time. Said he needed to witness my signature. Official-looking man. He had a pin on his lapel, some kind of scales. He called himself Walter something." Victor's mind raced. Walter Owens. He'd seen the name in Monique's files. Caesar's attorney. Helped legitimize the scam by adding legal-looking documentation. Did this lawyer say anything else? "He told Monique to make sure I understood the alternative payment options if I couldn't pay cash. So they had work programs for people in my situation." Eleanor's voice hardened. "I may have had a stroke, Victor, but I'm not stupid. I knew something was wrong. That's when I refused to sign anything else. That's probably why they escalated to violence. You didn't fall for the trap." Victor squeezed her hand. "You did good, Mom. You're stronger than they thought. I raised you, didn't I?" She smiled, but it faded. "Victor, promise me you won't do anything that'll take you away from me permanently. I can't lose you." He wanted a promise. Wanted to tell her he'd stop, let the law handle it, go back to his normal life. But he'd already crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. 3 men were dead by his order. He'd committed federal crimes that could put him away for life. "I'll be careful," was all he could offer. Outside the hospital, his phone rang. "Eric, FBI just arrested Caesar O'Neill. They're also hitting Walter Owens' law office right now. Someone dropped a hell of a case in their lap." "Good. Victor, they're also looking for you. Agent Williamson connected the drone strike to you. He's got evidence, witness statements. He's building a case." "How long?" "He's waiting until he has something airtight. My guess? 48 hours, maybe 72. Victor did the math. Caesar would make bail before Victor could be arrested, which meant a narrow window to finish this. "I need one more thing from you." "Name it." "Caesar's going to make bail. When he does, he'll run or he'll come after my mother to finish what he started. I need to know where he'll go." "Victor." "Eric, you owe me." "Kandahar, 2017. I took a bullet meant for you." Silence on the line. Then, "Caesar's got a safe house. Remote property in the desert, 40 miles outside Vegas. Off-grid, stocked like a bunker. If he runs, that's where he'll go. Send me coordinates." "What are you planning?" "To end this." Caesar O'Neill made bail 36 hours later. $2 million, posted by one of his legitimate businesses. He walked out of detention, climbed into a waiting SUV, and disappeared. Morris Williamson had anticipated this. He'd put surveillance on Caesar, assigned a team to follow him. But Caesar's driver was good. They lost the SUV in traffic near the Strip. Morris swore, then checked his other lead. Victor Neff had disappeared too. No credit card usage, no phone pings, nothing. The man had gone completely dark. Morris had a bad feeling about what was coming. The safe house sat in the desert like a concrete tomb. Caesar arrived at sunset, paranoid and furious. Nelson was in federal custody. Monique had turned witness. His lawyers were scrambling. Everything he'd built was collapsing. But he still had resources. Cash hidden in offshore accounts, connections in Mexico, escape routes planned years ago. He'd lie low for a few months, then rebuild somewhere else. First, though, he had unfinished business. Eleanor Neff was still alive. The message hadn't been delivered completely. Caesar couldn't leave without finishing what he'd started. He was planning his next move when the power went out. Generators should kick in. His bodyguard never finished the sentence. A window shattered and the bodyguard dropped, tranquilizer dart in his neck. Caesar drew his pistol back toward the panic room. Another window broke. His second bodyguard went down. Then Victor Neff walked through the front door like he owned the place. "Hello, Caesar." Caesar raised his pistol. "You're dead. You first." Victor moved before Caesar could fire. A blur of train violence. The gun clattered away. Caesar found himself on the floor, wrist broken, Victor's boot on his chest. Your brother, Danny, was carrying an AK-47 in an active combat zone. He fired at my team. That's not murder, Caesar. That's war. He was a kid, 20 years old. So were half the soldiers he was shooting at. Victor's voice was ice. You want to hate me for that? Fine. But you don't touch my mother. You don't carve words into a 78-year-old woman because you're angry at me. What are you going to do? Kill me? Make me disappear like you did Darren and the others? Caesar laughed bitterly. You're no better than me. You're right. I'm not. Victor pulled out zip ties. But I'm smarter. He bound Caesar's hands and feet, then dragged him to a chair. From his pack, Victor pulled out a laptop and a camera. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to confess. Every crime, every victim, every dirty deal. Full detail. Go to hell. Victor pulled up footage on the laptop. Recognize these people. Caesar's face went white. The screen showed the 16 trafficking victims ICE had freed from Nelson's warehouse. They're currently in protective custody, giving statements. 3 of them identified you by name. 2 were minors when you trafficked them. Victor let that sink in. Federal trafficking charges, Caesar. Life in prison, no parole. Unless what? Unless you confess to everything. The loan scams, the extortion, the money laundering. I'm sure FBI will be lenient on the trafficking charges if you cooperate fully on the other crimes. It was a lie. The FBI would crucify him either way. But Caesar was desperate enough to grasp at any hope. You're setting me up. I'm giving you a choice. Confess to the financial crimes. Maybe avoid death row for trafficking. Or stay silent and let those victims testify against you. See how sympathetic a jury is to a man who enslaved children. Caesar stared at the laptop screen, at the faces of people whose lives he destroyed. For the first time, Victor saw fear in his eyes. If I confess, my mother, she'll be safe? You won't touch her. Victor almost laughed. Your mother? She hasn't spoken to you in 15 years. But yes, innocent people stay innocent. That's the difference between you and me. Caesar took a shaky breath. All right, I'll confess. But you promised the trafficking charges. I promise nothing. But I'll make sure the FBI knows you cooperated. Over the next 2 hours, Caesar talked. Victor recorded everything, uploading in real time to an encrypted server. Names, dates, amounts, methods. A masterclass in organized crime. When Caesar finished, Victor stood. One last thing. You sent 3 men to carve a message in my mother. They carved the word interest. What did that mean? Caesar smiled, ugly and vicious. It meant I was just getting started. Interest accrues, doesn't it? I was going to take pieces of her, bit by bit, make you watch her suffer for years. That's what you took from me. Years with my brother. Victor nodded slowly. I understand. Then he pulled out a marker. Before Caesar could react, Victor grabbed his head and wrote across his forehead. Debt paid. What are you? You wanted to send messages. Here's mine. Victor hit a button on his phone. Outside, sirens wailed. FBI's about 3 minutes out. I called them before I came in. They're going to find you tied up with a confession ready to go. Agent Williamson's been very eager to talk to you. Caesar's eyes went wide. You son of a... Oh, and Caesar? Those trafficking victims? They're not in protective custody. They're in witness protection. And they're testifying whether you confess or not. I just wanted to hear you say it all out loud. For my own peace of mind. Victor walked toward the door. Caesar shouted curses after him, but Victor didn't look back. He melted into the desert as FBI vehicles surrounded the safe house. From a ridge a mile away, he watched through binoculars as agents pulled Caesar out, read him his rights, loaded him into a car. His phone rang. Eric, tell me you didn't do what I think you did. Caesar O'Neill is in FBI custody with a full confession. Nelson Myers is facing trafficking charges. Monique Baird is cooperating. Walter Owens is disbarred and under investigation. The organization is done. And you, still working on that part. Morris Williamson stood in Caesar O'Neill's safe house, staring at the laptop Victor had left behind. The confession was detailed, legally admissible, and would put Caesar away for decades. There was also a note. Agent Williamson, everything you need to dismantle this organization is here. The trafficking victims are real and willing to testify. Follow the money trail in the attached files. You'll find enough to make your career. V. Morris picked up the note, turned it over. On the back, my mother is innocent. So were the 43 people Caesar victimized. 3 men died because they tortured an elderly woman. I sleep fine with that. Do you? Morris sat down heavily. He should be furious. Victor Neff had committed multiple federal crimes, called an illegal drone strike, extracted a confession through intimidation, and evaded arrest. But he'd also taken down a criminal organization the FBI had chased for years, freed trafficking victims, brought justice to people the system had failed. His phone rang. His supervisor. Williamson, we got O'Neill. Full confession, evidence package that'll keep prosecutors busy for months. Hell of a caller. Yes, sir. What about Victor Neff? Where are we on the drone strike case? Morris looked at the note in his hand, then at the evidence that would save dozens of lives. Still building the case, sir. Need more time to make it airtight. Keep on it. But good work tonight. Morris ended the call. He took the note Victor had left, folded it carefully, and put it in his pocket. Then he got to work processing the evidence. Victor sat in his mother's hospital room, holding her hand while she slept. The doctor said she could go home in 2 days. The scars on her back would fade, but never fully disappear. She'd need physical therapy for months. But she was alive, safe, and the men who'd hurt her were either dead or facing life in prison. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You have 24 hours before I officially receive evidence linking you to the drone strike. Suggest you be somewhere without extradition treaties. M.W. Victor smiled grimly. Morris Williamson was giving him a head start. Professional courtesy from one soldier to another. He had calls to make, arrangements to set up. Eric could help him disappear. New identity, new country, new life. He'd be running forever, but at least his mother would be safe. Eleanor stirred, opened her eyes. Victor? You're still here. Where else would I be? She studied his face. You're leaving. I can tell. Mom, don't lie to me. I'm old, not blind. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. What you did? It was for me, wasn't it? Victor didn't answer. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Those men who came here. Did you? They won't hurt anyone else. It was all he could say. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then, your father, he always said you had his temper. But you also have my heart. You protected me the only way you knew how. I crossed lines, Mom. Lines that can't be uncrossed. Lines those men crossed first. She pulled his hand to her cheek. I don't know what you did, and maybe I don't want to know, but I know my son. You're a good man, Victor. Don't let this change that. I have to leave for a while. How long? I don't know. Maybe forever. The tears spilled over. Then promise me something. Wherever you go, whoever you become, remember you're my son. Remember I love you. I promise. They sat in silence, holding hands, memorizing each other's faces. Outside, dawn was breaking over Las Vegas. A new day, but for Victor, maybe the last day of his old life. His phone buzzed again. Eric, extraction ready when you are. Private airfield, 1 hour. Victor kissed his mother's forehead. I have to go. I know. Eleanor pulled him close, whispered in his ear. Make them remember why they shouldn't have touched us. Victor pulled back, surprised. Eleanor smiled, and for a moment he saw the fierce nurse who'd raised him alone, who'd fought every day to give him a better life. You're not the only one with steel in your spine, she said. Go. Do what you need to do. I'll be here when you come back. If I come back. When? Not if. She touched his face. You always come home, Victor. Always. He left before he could change his mind, walked out of the hospital into the Nevada morning. The rental car was where he'd left it. He drove toward the private airfield, mind already shifting to logistics. New identity, new country. Eric had contacts in South America, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, places where Victor could disappear. But as he drove, he noticed something. A black SUV, 3 cars back, keeping pace. Victor's training kicked in. He took a random turn. The SUV followed. Another turn. Still there. Not FBI. They'd use multiple vehicles, rotating coverage. This was someone else. Victor pulled into a parking garage, drove to the top level, parked facing the entrance. He pulled his sidearm, waited. The SUV appeared 5 minutes later. It parked 10 spaces away. The driver stepped out. Morris Williamson, alone. Victor kept his hand on his pistol, but didn't aim. Morris walked over slowly, hands visible. Relax, Neff. I'm not here to arrest you. Then what do you want? Morris leaned against the car. I've been a federal agent for 20 years. You know how many cases I've closed where the bad guys actually face justice? Maybe a third. Rest of the time, they lawyer up, cut deals, disappear into the system. And Caesar O'Neill is going to prison for the rest of his life. So is Nelson Myers. Walter Owens will be disbarred and prosecuted. Monique Baird is cooperating on a dozen other cases. That trafficking ring is done. Morris looked at Victor. You accomplished in 5 days what we couldn't do in 5 years. I broke the law. You called in a drone strike on American soil. You tortured a suspect for a confession. You operated as a vigilante. Morris paused. You also saved 16 trafficking victims, brought down a criminal organization, and protected your mother. You here to thank me or arrest me? Neither. I'm here to give you a choice. Victor's hand tightened on his pistol. Listening. The drone strike. I can't prove it was you. The authorization came from someone at Langley who'll deny everything. The deaths look like a gas explosion if we stop investigating. Caesar's confession was clearly coerced, but we have enough independent evidence to convict him anyway. Monique's testimony is voluntary. Everything else you did? No witnesses, no evidence. So, if you disappear right now, leave the country and never come back, I have no case. The file sits open indefinitely, eventually goes cold. Your mother stays safe, the criminals go to prison, everyone wins. Victor studied the agent's face. Why are you doing this? Morris was quiet for a moment. My mother died when I was 15. Cancer. I spent her last 6 months watching her waste away, helpless to stop it. If someone had hurt her the way Caesar hurt yours. He met Victor's eyes. I like to think I'd have the balls to do what you did. You're a federal agent. I'm a son first. Morris straightened. But I'm also telling you this. If you stay, if you ever come back, if you ever pull something like this again on American soil, I will hunt you down. This is a one-time pass. Use it. Victor nodded slowly. Understood. One more thing. Morris pulled an envelope from his jacket. Your mother's medical bills. Caesar's seized assets are going to victim compensation. I made sure Eleanor Neff is at the top of the list. She'll be taken care of. Victor took the envelope, surprised to feel his throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just go. Morris walked back to his SUV, paused. For what it's worth, Neff, you're a good soldier. Wish we had more like you. He drove away, leaving Victor alone on the parking garage roof with a choice. Run or stay. Freedom or family. The old life or the unknown. Victor thought about his mother's words. You always come home. He pulled out his phone, called Eric. Change of plans. You're not taking the extraction? No. I need something else. How hard is it to create a new identity that'll hold up to FBI scrutiny, but keeps me in the country? Victor, that's a hell of a risk. My mother's here. I'm not leaving her. Eric sighed. It's doable. Expensive. You'll have to stay off-grid, change everything, name, job, location. Do it. I'll wire you the money. Where will you go? Victor looked out at the Vegas skyline, the city where he'd just dismantled a criminal empire. Then he thought about quieter places. Small towns. Somewhere he could rebuild. Somewhere I can be close enough to visit her. Somewhere I can start over. All right. Give me 48 hours. Victor ended the call, sat in his car watching the sunrise. He'd crossed every line, broken every rule, become the kind of man he'd been trained to hunt. But his mother was safe. The criminals were in prison. Justice, rough and violent and illegal as it was, had been served. He pulled out of the parking garage and drove back toward the hospital. He had 48 hours before his new identity was ready. Enough time to spend with Eleanor to make sure she truly would be okay. 2 days later, Victor Neff ceased to exist. In his place stood Roderick Cherry, a freelance consultant who'd just moved to a small town in Idaho. He had a modest apartment, a quiet life, and every Saturday he drove 6 hours to visit his mother in Vegas. Eleanor never asked about his new name or why he'd changed everything. She just smiled when he showed up, held his hand during physical therapy, and told him stories about her week. Morris Williamson kept his word. The drone strike investigation went cold. Victor Neff was listed as whereabouts unknown. The case technically open, but practically abandoned. Caesar O'Neill went to trial 6 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. He got life without parole, federal trafficking charges stacked on top of extortion, fraud, and money laundering. His organization was dismantled completely. On the day of sentencing, Eleanor Neff sat in the courtroom gallery. Caesar saw her as he was led away in chains. She met his eyes calmly, and he saw something there that made him look away first. The scorpion had been crushed by someone stronger. That night, Victor, now Roderick, sat with his mother in her living room. She'd recovered remarkably well. The scars on her back faded to thin lines. She'd regained most of her mobility. Her speech was clear. "You know," Eleanor said, "I've been thinking about Danny O'Neill." Victor tensed. "Mom, he was just a kid who made bad choices. Got caught up in something bigger than himself. I can forgive him for that." She looked at Victor. "But his brother? What he did was personal, deliberate, evil. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's over. I know. Because of you." She squeezed his hand. "My son, who saved me, who gave up everything to make sure I was safe. I'd do it again. I know you would. That's what scares me." Eleanor smiled sadly. "Promise me, Victor, Roderick, whatever name you use now, promise me you'll find peace. Don't let what you did define who you are." "I'll try. That's all I ask." They sat in comfortable silence, the way families do when words aren't necessary. Outside, the Vegas night pulsed with light and life. But in Eleanor's living room, there was only quiet and safety. Victor had paid a price for revenge, his identity, his career, his freedom to live openly. But watching his mother smile, seeing her safe and healing, he knew he'd make the same choice every time. Some debts demanded payment in blood and fire. Some messages required violence to deliver. And some sons would burn down the world to protect their mothers. Victor had done all three, and he slept just fine. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.